In a world where faith is very much needed, I bring to you today Father Bob Hoffman, who's going to talk about Epiphany Catholic Church and Epiphany Catholic School here in Lake City, Florida. Welcome to today's Talk with Erika. I'm Erika Del Sordo, your host. Please be sure to subscribe to the Today's Talk with Erika YouTube channel so that you don't miss any shows. You can just tap the subscribe button in the lower right corner. Now, this special show features Father Bob Hoffman, pastor at Epiphany Catholic Church. Father Bob, welcome.
Well, thank you. I'm very happy to be here. Very happy to join your podcast and looking forward to our time together here.
Me too, so much, because of course we've had this discussion. I've gone to Catholic school my whole life, and I'm so happy that my parents chose that for me. And so to be here in Lake City now for the past 5 years and to have joined Epiphany Catholic Church is huge for me. And it's really, you're one of the pastors that I've met throughout my entire life of going to Catholic school who's so personable. Everyone really loves you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's really important that the parishioners, have a sense of connection to their pastor, that their priest not just be this impersonal figure that, stands up front in the vestments and celebrates mass and then quickly departs through the side door. I mean, I think it's important that priests have relationships with, on some level, as much as is possible, given the number of parishioners that are in a parish, that they have that relationship with their parishioners as much as they can.
That's so true. Now, how long have you been the pastor at Epiphany?
So I got here in August of 2020. I was brought in as the vicar. Pastor had an illness and he needed some time away, and he's now down at another part of the diocese, but they asked me to step in and be the pastor. So and the way that the church works, they, if you haven't been pastor before, they make you, quote, administrator. Which in the church has this canon law, right, that the church follows, the church law. And so as an administrator, it's just easier if things don't work out for the bishop to make a change. And then after 6 months, they made me pastor. So January 1st of 2021, I was named administrator. And at the very end of June in 2021, I was installed as pastor.
That's fantastic. And it is the St. Augustine Diocese, in case anyone is wondering. That's what Lake City Epiphany is a part of.
It is. We are the next to last parish going west. So St. Francis Xavier in Live Oak is the furthest west parish going out in this direction. The Diocese of St. Augustine. Now, the parish around which, I guess that's at the center of the diocese, the Cathedral Parish of St. Augustine, is the oldest continuous parish in the United States. So I'm having to do the math in my head. I want to say it's 1565 was when Pedro Menendez came ashore. And, the first thing they did was to celebrate Mass. And as Catholics, we argue then that the first Mass since Eucharist, which is a central part of the Catholic Mass, actually means Thanksgiving in the original Greek, that the first Thanksgiving was not with the pilgrims in, I want to say 1610, but was in St. Augustine in 1565. So the parish in St. Augustine then's been since 1565. Although when it was under Spanish control most of that time, or most of its early years, the diocese under which it fell was in Cuba. And then eventually it was actually not until 1870 that it became its own diocese in its own right. So we have the Diocese of St. Augustine dating from 1870. It was what we call the Mother Diocese of Florida. So all of Florida was the Diocese of St. Augustine. And then I don't remember the year, but it was the late 1950s that the Diocese of Miami broke off. And since so many more people lived down there, it became the Archdiocese of Miami. And then the other diocese, I don't remember who broke off from who when, but now we're up to 7 dioceses in the state of Florida.
That's impressive. I really like that. So when did the school come into play? Because the church obviously was here first. So when did Epiphany Catholic School, when was that born?
So the church, well, there's been a Catholic presence of some sort since the late 1800s, but the first Catholic Mass in Lake City was from, who was then, I guess he was over Savannah. But Bishop Augustine Verreau came behind one of the lines. I guess, I don't know if it was, I thought I remember him coming behind Union lines, but I don't remember how that would have worked. But during the Civil War, he came behind the lines and said mass at City Hall.
Hmm.
And then we had a mission church, and then in 1944, off the top of my head, I'm not sure the exact year, it became a parish, but it was downtown. And it was a little white clapboard church downtown, and there's a little model of it up here in the office. But it became a parish in 1944, was a mission before that. And then in 1959, they moved out here to this part of town, actually south of town, I guess at the time. And the first buildings on the campus were the school. They had to build a pump house, believe it or not, which
Wow.
we're now converted to a storage building. Took the old tank out, the old water tank, but they had to have a pump house because they didn't have city services out this far in Lake City. So they had an electric pump well that pumped up into this water tank, and the water tank then fed the office, which used to be the convent, fed the school building, and fed the church, which opened in 1966. And it's now our parish hall. We built another church in 1996 was when the church was dedicated in January. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Wow, that goes back a long ways, probably farther, I want to say, than most other churches. That's a history.
It's been, yeah, the Catholics have been a presence in Lake City for a long time. They've been a minority presence, albeit for all that time, and still are a minority presence, but they've been a presence here in Lake City for a long time. The school, so 1959, so the school it's 64 years that the school's been around. And it originally opened with Father Malone was the priest who came out here, and anybody in Lake City knows, or I assume they know, that when you come around Bascom Norris on the south side of town, when you cross over Main Street, 41, that little stretch of road between 441 Marion and 41 or Main on the south side here is not Bascom Norris, it's Malone.
Right, right.
And so, it was named after Father Malone, who was the pastor when they moved out here. And he opened the school with the Irish Sisters of Mercy. And we had the Irish Sisters of Mercy were there. And then later they had some Sisters of St. Joseph who came here. And now we have Carmelite sisters who help us in the school. And
That's
the
awesome.
Carmelites, the Carmelites have been here for 20 years, 21 years, 21 years, I think.
It's a long
So,
time, and they do so well. It's so nice to see them at Mass. It's very nice to see them, at Masses with their presence and their singing. And we had one of the sisters playing the organ, and so it's so nice to see. It is.
yes, yes. Well, it is. It is wonderful. Although at this moment,
Mhm.
the two younger sisters went back to Indonesia to profess their final vows, which is the last step of joining the Carmelites. And so they are not able to come back immediately
Mhm.
because of immigration rules and whatnot. But so we're down to 3 sisters at the moment. We have 2 others coming, but I don't think they're musically inclined. So, but
I can relate to that.
God, yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I told the people in the parish, they said, we're not singing enough. I said, well, some of these things that you could sing, I have to sing something to introduce it. And I said, if you can put up with my singing, I said, I will sing the least so you can sing the most.
That's funny.
But
They all sound so good though, and you sound terrific. You sound better than I would
well,
if I started singing for you. So
well, I do my little bit so they can do their part. But God provides. So now we're blessed with a young mother who has become a parishioner here within the last few months, and she's helping us with our music program. She's actually our volunteer music director at the moment, and she's a professional musician. She has played with the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra, and she's also a professional vocalist. So, God, the Lord taketh and the Lord provides. Usually it's the other way around, but yeah. So God has provided us very, very richly, and we're very thankful to have this person in our parish now.
She's phenomenal. And I cannot think of her name right now, but she's the one with the infant. She was pregnant. She had the baby. She was back a week later and she's up there singing with the baby on her. She's phenomenal. I must say her voice, her work ethic, everything she's
She's
fantastic.
amazing.
Yes,
Yeah,
she really is.
Kelsey is her first
Okay.
name. Yeah, I don't know if we name names on this podcast or not, but one of the
There's her
neatest
shout
things,
out.
there's her shout out. Well, one of the neatest things was, seeing, her carry little Benedict up to do the responsorial psalm at Mass. And then I guess when first Mass, I came back from vacation here at the end of July. And our lector that Mass was actually a circuit court judge here in town. And so she finished her reading and she went back and sat in the choir. And I was like, what's going on? And she took Benedict from Kelsey, and Kelsey went up to the responsorial psalm. And Lily held Benedict until Kelsey got back. And then Lily went back to her pew.
I saw that. I was at
Yes.
that Mass. I remember that.
Well, and she did it again this Sunday. So yeah,
fantastic. Good.
it's fantastic.
I think it's phenomenal that she sings as loud as she sings, and that baby is just completely quiet and well behaved and no fussing. That's what's impressive to me.
She's a very, very disciplined musician. She takes her craft very seriously, and she's very, very talented. And so I think, that baby's used to and is accustomed to and expects to hear mom sing.
Mm-hmm.
She's all through pregnancy. I'm sure she heard a lot of mom's voice in the womb, and he's hearing a lot of mom's voice now. So I think that's comforting to Benedict.
It is. And then we'll have a new little kindergartner soon. I know that because the school, when it first started out, was only K-4, right? And then it expanded. And so it's nice to also see so many children at Mass all the time. And I know it's so funny because, of course, throughout Mass, we always sneeze, we cough, but you hear kids screaming and crying. But you know what? It's nice that they're there. That's the important part, right? It's nice that they're in Mass.
Yes,
and they're joining in.
And I'm just happy to hear them. I'm thrilled to hear them. And particularly, we have 3 masses. On the weekends, we have the Vigil Mass. We have the 8 o'clock Mass. And the Vigil Mass and the 8 o'clock Mass don't have as many young children. 10:30, we have a lot of young children. And, Kelsey's got a daughter who started kindergarten here and is friends with and looking forward to spending kindergarten with another young girl who she knew from being at 10:30 Mass together.
Oh, that's awesome.
So they're thrilled to be there. And I am very encouraging of the parents bringing their children. Now, not every parent is willing to take my advice, because I also tell them, not only should you bring your child to Mass, because the child's not going to get used to being at Mass unless the child comes to Mass, and the child needs to see that this is important to you. But I also suggest, come sit in the front pew. And most parents aren't yet there to be willing to do that. But my argument is that if you sit in the back, all they do is see the backs of other people, and they need to see what's really going on up front. And
right, less distraction.
Yeah, and so there's a few other families that have been willing to do that, sit up front. But one of the funniest things that I've ever heard, we talk about how much I love having the children at Mass, and we need to not be upset with the noise that they make, but just be joyful about the noise that they make. Somebody told me the story of Bishop Fulton Sheen. Bishop Sheen was the bishop on network TV back in the 50s and 60s, I guess. He actually won an Emmy Award when he was up against Milton Berle.
Oh, wow.
And somebody asked him how he won an Emmy Award for his TV show. And the bishop said, I had better writers, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But at another Mass, at another time, he saw a young woman getting up and taking her child out of mass. And he said to the woman, you know, ma'am, your child is not bothering me. And the woman looked back at him and said, yes, but you're bothering the child, and kept going.
Oh my gosh. Really? Oh, wow. Oh my
Yes,
gosh.
yes. So
That was
I
recorded.
thought, yeah, I thought that was one of the funniest things I've ever heard.
That is hysterical. Not
Because,
so nice, but hysterical. That's funny.
well, and of course we only know that story because Bishop Sheen told it on himself. So
Right.
yes,
That's funny. That is
but
too funny. Oh my goodness.
but
Wow.
but yes, back to what you were saying before. The school started K through, I mean, it started 1 year at a time. I think it went up to K through 6 was my memory of it, and then they expanded to K through 8. I'm not even sure
Okay.
K was at the beginning, but we have parishioners who are like, I missed out by a year. You know, when they started first grade, I was in second grade, and then they
Right.
added second grade, and I was in third grade. But you know, it's been a great part of Lake City, and we have, you know, so many people here in Lake City who were educated at the school. And although it is a Catholic school, we have so many people in Lake City who were not Catholic who were educated at this school.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we look around at people in the city government. I won't name names this time, but I talked to him at the National Prayer, and I said, I was looking over an alumni list. I thought I saw your name on the Epiphany alumni list. And he says, yes, I was there, and my I want to say he had 3 brothers maybe,
Oh, wow.
that were there too, and a lot of people in Lake City were educated at Epiphany. So we've been serving Catholics, but we've been serving, you know, all faiths really since 1959. And one of the other funny stories that I was again, I won't call the people out, but I was having a doctor's appointment, and the doctor's working on me, and the doctor's a graduate of Epiphany, and his assistant said, you know, I think I'm going to send my child to this other school because you have to be Catholic to go to Epiphany. And he stopped what he was doing with me, and he looked up at her with this puzzled look, and he says, when I was at Epiphany, my best friend was Jewish. And yes, it's true. And I have since met his best friend, who
Mm-hmm.
is still, you know, a prominent person here in town. And
Wow.
yes, and they're still friends. They're still good friends many years later. So
Wow. That's awesome. But I remember that when
yes.
I went to Catholic school down in Hollywood, Florida, and we
Hmm.
had Jewish people there as well, and other denominations, and it wasn't just Catholics that went to Catholic school. So yeah,
Yes, I mean,
I can still see that.
Catholic education in this country really draws or points back towards St. Elizabeth Ann Seton in the
Hmm.
early 1800s as sort of its origin in this country.
Hmm.
And so there's, you know, there's over 200 years of history of really serving all children of all faiths. And yes, you know, it might be a Catholic school, but, and, you know, and the Catholics, I mean, certainly get to embrace their faith within the school, but you know, they've got a long history of serving children of all faiths and from all backgrounds, and really helping to lift them up and to help them do better in this life, but also hopefully to work toward eternal life.
I really like that. I really like that. And what's amazing is my Catholic school, we really have a lot of successful people that had come from there. And that's not to say you don't get successful people doing other, going to other schools in different forms, but we just did. And I had noticed that. And everyone's
Mhm.
still faith-based. And I love when, there's a Catholic holiday, everyone's posting it on social media. And it's nice to see that everyone is sharing that and there's still a presence. And no one really, whom I went to school with, lost that. And we're all
Mhm.
still pretty active with the Catholic Church. So that
Well,
to me is great.
it, yeah, it seems in the culture today that it's just so important that children have an opportunity to go to a school that helps them with their faith. You know, the prevailing culture seems to be in many ways opposed to the faith. You know, we had in the Catholic Church, we had Vatican II back in the early 1960s, and part of Vatican II's vision was to speak the faith in a new way to a new time and to connect with the world. But it seems like today we've kind of come to the realization that it's really hard to connect to a prevailing culture and to a greater world when that greater or that prevailing culture is sort of running full speed in the opposite direction.
Right.
And we want to be able to help provide a place that is a school that's faithful, where faith is not hidden, it's not prohibited, it's openly discussed, it's encouraged, and where even if you're not Catholic, the 2,000-year tradition of the Catholic Church offers a lot in terms of moral theology, in terms of values and morals, in a very reasoned and thoughtful way that if you're not Catholic, you can certainly take with you for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you keep that alive, not even just within the church setting, but you have your own podcast and you share a lot on there, don't you? Talk to
Yes.
me about your podcast. It's called Be Alive, actually, right?
Yeah, so the podcast is called Be Alive, and the primary purpose of it is, again, with the culture being the way it is, and young people, trying to find something to hold on to hold on to their faith with, sort of an anchor or a foothold or a toehold, just something, in the midst of the storms, some rock they can hold fast to.
Right.
We really try hard to highlight how other young people have experienced their faith, how they're living their faith, and we highlight youth and young adults from all over our diocese and how they've come to their faith, how they're living their faith, how they're embracing their faith. And we've had one, two, three young adults from here in Lake City that have been part of it, and we continue to do it and continue to release the episodes so that, again, young people can hear that there is a way forward, that they can be faithful in this world that seems otherwise buffeted by the storms.
I love that. I really love that. I think that's fantastic. And that's one of the biggest reasons also that I had wanted to share that, because more people need to be listening to that, both the youth and the older. I think everyone really needs to be listening. Where can they find your podcast?
It's on pretty much all the platforms. If they look for Be Alive and maybe add the Diocese of St. Augustine
Okay.
into the search, I use Spotify. I'm pretty sure it's on YouTube. I mean, it's on Apple. It's on. I'm not, as you might gather from the gray hairs, the youngest, most tech savvy, hip person out there. So I use Spotify. Not there's anything wrong with that platform, but it's the one that I was pointed toward, and I don't have a real familiarity with every other platform that's out there, but it's pretty much on all the major platforms, is what I'm told. So
Awesome.
they
Yeah.
shouldn't have any trouble finding it at all, and I'm happy to do that, and I'm happy to be a part of that. And for people that are around Lake City, I'm also happy to do that article that's in the Lake City Reporter every Saturday.
Oh, fantastic. What else is coming up that you would like to share? Is there anything that anyone should know about that's coming up soon? Anything? Or just
Well,
Sunday Mass? That's coming up soon. Sunday Mass. Saturday
so I mentioned the article for those. I know that the podcast tend to skew toward a younger population. The newspaper tends to skew toward an older population. But that doesn't mean that the older people can't listen to the podcast, the younger people can't read the newspaper. But on Saturdays on the Faith page, there's an article that I put in there every Saturday, and really try to sort of show a reason for our faith, really, right? So in a way that's coherent, intellectually makes sense, and people come to see that the faith response is really the only logically possible response out there. So the other things that I would suggest is simply, go to church. we have people sometimes that come to me that are struggling in their lives, that are dealing with all kinds of different problems. And, they say, what should I do? And I say, well, if you're Catholic, go to Mass, go to confession before you go to Mass, if it's been a while. So go to confession, go to Mass, receive the Eucharist, and pray every day. And sometimes they look at me like, that's it. I'm like, yeah, that's it. They want a more complicated answer. They're willing to do the more complicated answer. It's like naming the Syrian, right? You just want me to jump in that muddy water. Why don't I go do something else instead? No, just go jump in that muddy water. And that really is so important that people go to church, every weekend, that they pray every day, they read the Bible. And that's the basic prescription for everyone. Over time, they'll come to grow closer to our Lord. Over time, kind of like an exercise program. You see sometimes the people that go out and it's like 2:00 in the afternoon in August, and they're running their little heart out, and you're like, this is not going to be sustainable. And they're like trying to lose all the weight they want to lose in that one afternoon. But if anybody that's been on a program and been successful, it takes time. And over time, you look back months, you look back years, and you see a huge difference. And the same thing's true with the spiritual life. You look back months, you look back years after consistently doing the things you're supposed to do, and you see a huge difference.
Isn't that the truth? I could tell so many stories. I won't bore anyone with them, but isn't that the truth? I've had some miracles happen in my life, so I can attest to that.
I think everybody's had some miracles happen. I think sometimes they're just not full, their eyes aren't fully open to realize that's what really just happened.
Right. And of course, hindsight is always 2020. And I think that works for everyone. Sometimes you have to sit down, be still, and realize that you're in the miracle. You're living in what you prayed for. So there's that too. But I really appreciate what you have said, because it really speaks to not just me, but anyone who is watching and listening. It's so true. And in the world that we're living in today, we really need our faith, to hold on to our faith. That's the biggest one. That's what grounds us. That's what, I'd rather be doing on a Sunday than turning on the news.
Yes. Well, one other thing that I would add is that, from a Christian perspective, so often we're looking for the things that we want, and the world tells us to follow our dreams and be who we want to be and do what we want to do. But that's really limiting. God is all-knowing. You've heard me say this many times before in church, but God is, all-knowing, all-powerful, not just that God loves, but that God is love, and that God is the source of all goodness itself. And so an all-knowing, all-powerful God who is love and is the source of all goodness itself is going to have a plan for you that's better than any plan you could come up with on your own. So don't chase your dreams. Don't be who you want to be. Discern who God meant you to be. And then, as St. Catherine said, be who God meant you to be, and you will set the world on fire.
That is so true. I could listen to you for hours just saying that, because again, I'm telling you, I've lived it all. So that's so true. That's so true. God is gonna take you to where He knows you are needed and where you need to be. So you just keep living and doing well and living life to its fullest, and God'll get you there.
Yes. If God is your co-pilot, change seats. I saw that on a church sign one time. That's also a different way of putting the same thing.
That's awesome. Did you want to add anything else?
Again, I think people in this life really sometimes have those struggles. And, we need to be able to sit back, take a seat, allow God to direct things, and be okay with whatever our circumstances are, even if they're difficult. Even, they might be easy at times, they'll be difficult at times, but try to find a meaning and purpose in whatever circumstances you are. Even in the midst of suffering, there can be a purpose that your life has. God, if you're here, If God didn't want you here, you wouldn't be here. That would, when it's time to go home, it's time to go home. And if you stubbornly resisted and avoided any other way to go home, a meteor could fall out of the sky and take care of the job for you. Not that we're wishing that on anybody, but the point being, if you're still here, there's a reason you're still here. You either need to do something for someone else, or someone else needs to do something for you. So try to find that purpose. And if you can't find that purpose, just trust that that purpose exists and let God do what God does best and take care of the rest. We say that God operates through as the primary cause, but like a carpenter that has a hammer, the hammer is a secondary cause, and that God prefers to act through secondary causes where we're his hands and his feet. But that once in a while, and we call those the miracles, God makes it happen without the secondary cause. But, if we're really honest, God a lot of times will take our stumbling and bumbling and our feeble efforts and reach around and make it happen. And much like the 3-year-old who's kind of fumbling around with something, and then mom reaches in and fixes it, and the 3-year-old jumps up and goes, "Look what I did." And, no, it wasn't the 3-year-old. It was the mom or the dad. And no, it wasn't us. It was God. But we have to be okay with where we're at. Always work to be better and always work to do our part. But not lose hope, not despair, and understand that no matter what our circumstances, our life has some purpose and there is some good to our lives.
That was beautiful. That's a perfect spot to end. That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing about Epiphany Catholic Church and Epiphany Catholic School, and giving a history lesson and just sharing everything you have. This has been wonderful. And anyone can find anything for the podcast, the school website, the church website. I will post all of that, not only here, but it'll also be on my website, and you can see it in the About section as well. So everyone can find where they can find you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Erika.
Thank you very much. This was wonderful. Thank you. Remember, today's Talk with Erika has a mobile app, and you can find all of my advertisers, the audio podcast, the video portion of the podcast, and anything else you might need to find my social media channels and more. Let them know you heard them on today's Talk with Erika.